Hey, what's up, everybody? This is my monthly mentoring session. Ryan Payne here. And just a reminder of what my business is, what I do. I have a wealth management firm, and I can discuss anything else to do with financial planning, investing, building a business from the ground up. So any of those topics, I'm always happy to talk about them. And we got some questions. We're going to get right into it this week, but hope everyone's well and hope everyone is having a good end of year here. Hard to believe. We literally have like 2.5 months left in the year, probably a little bit less than that. So that blows my mind. I don't know if it blows your mind. But let's get into the questions today. I'm going to bring them up right now, and we'll discuss what's on everyone's mind. I'm going to bring them up here now. And the first question that comes in from Lindsay Grifka. And the question is, what should I do with my old 401ks? A friend recommended I roll some into a Roth IRA and some into a SEP IRA. Now that I'm only working for myself, I want to be able to trade options with the money and put some toward my retirement and keep some in an account with more liquidity. Thank you. Elevator pitch for Lindsay is at Bling Blunts. We break stereotypes and promote self-expression and confidence by offering innovative and chic personal storage containers that are high fashion, functional, and discreet so our canafam can enjoy themselves to the fullest without critique or judgment. Try our smell-resistant, airtight, child-proof, and reusable containers today. I'll have to check them out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your old 401k. Okay. Now, you do have some options here. And the first one that I would look at is your friend recommended a Roth IRA. So a Roth IRA means you'd have to pay the taxes on that 401k money now. And basically, you'd put into an account called a Roth IRA. It's actually called a Roth conversion. Now, I believe that 401k would have to go to an IRA first, not to get into too many of the nuts and bolts. But basically, what you would do is convert that money, pay the taxes now on your 401k. And the nice thing about the Roth IRA is you would never pay taxes on that money again. All the growth on that money, you'd be able to take it out later tax-free, which I believe the earliest would be 59.5. But that's a pretty awesome tax strategy long-term. Now, what you want to consider is, the downside here is you have to pay taxes now. And what I would ask myself here, Lindsay, is are you going to be in a high tax bracket, a low tax bracket? And since you're really in those startup stage of your business, you might actually have no income this year and you might be in a very low tax bracket. If that's the case, or maybe you're showing a loss this year as you're starting your business, I think the Roth conversion makes a lot of sense because basically you'd be able to convert that money at an either a really low tax bracket or maybe even a zero bracket. And if you have a CPA or an accountant, this is a really good person to talk to about this, to strategize about that. But basically, if you put into a Roth or even a regular IRA, you should be able to do things like options. Now, I'm not a big fan of options philosophically, and I'm not going to get way into that. Maybe if you are trading options right now, options can work really well in a bull market like we're in now. Markets are going up, but be careful with options. And I don't know how you're trading options, whether you're writing calls, puts, buying calls, puts, but they can be very, very treacherous depending on what strategy you're using there. So just my 2 cents. I've learned a lot over my career, and I've lost a lot of money in options, trying to do anything you could possibly imagine with options. So it's not my investment choice just because of the risk that's inherent in options. But, that's a little bit of a rant. You can make those decisions. But I think definitely look at the Roth. The other thing is you could just set up simply a self-employed 401k if you don't have any employees, which I think is a great way to do it. There's no cost to set it up, and you can get the most money away. So depending on how well your business is doing, I believe you can get over $50,000 a year into a self-employed 401k, which might be more than the SEP, depending on some different nuances. So that's something to look at there as well. But I think anyone here who's self-employed, if you don't have employees and you want to set up a retirement plan for yourself, when you're looking at the SEP and you're looking at the self-employed 401k, a lot of times that self-employed 401k can be a better option. So if you're ever looking at those things, I work with a really good expert in the retirement plan space. We actually have a lot of expertise there. You can always hit me up with a message on Facebook or whatever. If you're looking at a retirement plan for your business, I can help with those options. But I think, again, just to summarize here, if you're in a low bracket this year, and you may be because you're kind of starting your new business, and you have all these old 401ks, it might be a good time to look at that Roth conversion. And again, I would talk to a CPA before you do that. Talk to an accountant, figure out strategically if it makes sense, but that could be a really good option for you. You could even do a 401k that's a Roth as well. So that's another option you have also. So there's a lot of ways to slice and dice that. Feel free to ping me on Facebook or even in the chat box underneath this if you want to, a little more clarification on that, because I can actually help you a little bit better with a more customized solution there. But just kind of the broad strokes, that's what I would be looking at there. Okay, so that's first question. Next question comes in from Kelly Killingsworth. And Kelly writes in, is it finally time to make a smart business decision to move out of California? Do I move now before I'm too invested or grind it out? Okay, a little background here is I own a construction company and am moving towards heavy equipment operations. California is not getting better. I feel it's going to get worse tax-wise and going to get difficult to maintain or even grow a business. And I feel I could possibly be more profitable in another state, say North Dakota, for example. It's a long way away, especially for me here in New York. I don't want to buy expensive equipment to then make decent money only to give 54% of my earnings back to California. Business-wise, to grow into seven figures, California doesn't seem safe to do so. Please, mentors, shed some guidance on this subject. Okay, this is a really good question because the question becomes, do we let the tax tail wag the dog, I guess is a better way of saying that. And it really depends. Like, I'm going to put myself in your shoes. Like, I'm here in New York City where I pay a lot of taxes. I definitely pay over 54% in taxes here. And I have a very, very movable business, meaning I can work from pretty much anywhere, especially with COVID right now. I'm not seeing any clients. I don't have to be in front of anybody. So I could go to Florida where I'd have a huge tax benefit. I'd have no state tax. I could probably reduce my tax bill significantly. And quality of life down there in terms of cost of living would just kill New York. In New York now, it's like paying a premium to live in a place that's really sad with nobody here. You start to wonder, at least California's got good weather. We got lousy weather, especially coming into the winter here. And I ask myself this question a lot, like, do I stay here or do my business somewhere else? However, if you look at demographics, New York and the surrounding area has a huge population. So for us to do business in a place like New York is so advantageous because any marketing strategy I want to deploy, I'm getting out to so many more people than I would if I was in a place like Florida or some of these other states that would be more advantageous from a cost of living perspective. So when I start looking at my business, even though I pay way more in taxes, the opportunity to do business from my business specifically is just so much greater in New York than it would be in many other places in the country. In fact, the Northeast, I believe, is by a wide margin the most concentrated population in the U.S. So from a marketer's perspective, it's like a dream because there's just so many people we can market to. Now, one thing you may want to look at here, because I also have a smaller office outside of Philadelphia where I'm from, and Philadelphia is actually a pretty good market too. And again, much more reasonable from a cost perspective. But I think what you want to do is you want to test the waters. Like, let's just say you want to get into another market, like you said, North Dakota, which that would be probably night and day in terms of lifestyle from California, I have to imagine. Is maybe you could start with like a satellite office there or test the waters there to see what the business situation looks like. I really don't like the whole if you build it, they will come model. I've done that many times in the past. I've thrown a lot of money into something, think it's going to be a great idea, only to find out later it was a terrible idea, and I just put a lot of money into it. Whereas I love the put your toes in the water approach, do a smaller model of something. Like, could you do a smaller business model in another state or try it out just to see how viable it is? And then if it's like, okay, the economics here are really good, then you can go for scale. Then maybe go like all in, move your business from California to North Dakota or somewhere else. Because I feel like if you don't really know, you're kind of like guessing that the business might be better in another place. That's not really the same thing as actually knowing for sure. And, California, for as many things that are negative about California, there's a lot going for it as well, right? Weather's great. I was just out in LA for about a week. I'm actually working on a YouTube channel with a YouTuber. The entertainment business is in LA. It's not in New York. So the connections I would make there are so much better than I would make in New York. So, for a lot of industries and a lot of businesses, I would say you can't not be in California. Now in yours, I don't know it that well. You know it better than me. But I think the long story short is I think you need to test the waters elsewhere as opposed to just going all in, taking your business out of California and going for it. So that would be my advice there. If there's any way to, again, just sum up, dip your toes in the water, not if you build it, they will come strategy. I think that'll be a much, much better approach to that. Okay. That would be my recommendations if I'm in your shoes. All right. Next question comes in from Tim. Tim writes in, Tim Schiffer. What are your thoughts on opening a physical retail location in this environment when the trend is away from that? And background here on Tim's business is I own and operate an e-commerce outdoor retail store focused on hiking, camping, and backpacking. We've been around for about 2.5 years and are experiencing steady but not yet explosive growth. Brick and mortar has been a desire of mine since the business started and was in our 3 to 5 year BP. A business plan, I assume you mean by BP. Okay. I kind of like this idea, Tim. I think right now, one of the advantages, actually one of my good friends here in New York is looking to start a franchise, is I got to think that those lease numbers are coming down tremendously. And I don't know exactly where you're located, but depending on what market you're in, like New York, it's insane. I have to imagine leases right now have my lease comes up in the summertime. I'm going to negotiate down from my understanding, it could be 30-40% from where I am today, which is just amazing. So I think look at the economics of it, but yeah, I mean, one of my viewpoints is the economy, and based on what I do for a living is look at the economy, look at investing, is we see the economic recovery happening quicker than expected. And if you start looking at, I'm not an epidemiologist, but we start looking at just some of the vaccines that could potentially be available next year. You start looking at these pharmaceutical cocktails that President Trump took, and it looked like it may have cut his recovery time in something like half. The remobilization of the economy and getting back to quote unquote normal seems like it may happen at a more rapid pace, and the economic data is telling you that. So if the economics work for you where it's worth it, where you get a cheap lease, maybe and lock in for a year plus. In fact, some of these leases you can probably lock in for a lot longer. And, I think it depends on the market as well. New York, maybe repricing is not at the bottom yet. But maybe in your market where things are more sustainable, it's not like this de-urbanization that's happening like in a New York City, it might be the perfect time to do that. Obviously go through your cost benefits analysis, look at your, assets, liabilities in terms of what you could bring in versus how hard it would be to overcome that nut of having that space on a, month-to-month basis. But I actually like that counterintuitive thinking right now. And, if the economy does renormalize faster than people anticipate, and you're one of the stores that's a go-to store, and I imagine your business has done well because during the pandemic, it seems to me a lot of these outdoor brands have really benefited from that because a lot of money's being spent there because, what else can we do right now? Going into the great outdoors is a phenomenal option during the pandemic. So I actually think, Tim, this is a really good idea. I would investigate it further. And I think being proactive for the reopening of the economy is not a bad look here. So I'm actually all for it. If you want to talk more about it, again, just ping me on Facebook here or in the chat under this video. Happy to talk to you about it. But I think, your gut there is probably right. And it's probably one of those places where if you look back retrospectively, kind of taking that counterintuitive move could benefit you in a lot of ways. I don't think retail is dead. I know personally, even for me, I did some online shopping during the pandemic here and bought clothes online. I still don't like it. I still want to try things on. So I think some of those trends aren't going away forever the way a lot of people say they are. I don't think we're going to buy everything online, and we're going to be happy to go back into spaces and check things out in person again. I don't think that trend is dead. So I like it. Again, let me know if you want to talk about it further. Okay, last question comes in from AkaShawnThomas. We all know Sean. Sean writes in, without a team to delegate to and without the budget to hire a full team, how did you get things done when you first started your company and it was just you? And a little background here is I hear many experienced entrepreneurs talk about delegating and only doing the things you're great at. And unfortunately, it's only me. I can relate to that. And I'm just starting. So I don't have the team nor the money to hire a full team. I know I can't be alone in trying to understand how to get everything done on a limited budget and only being me. How did you do it when you first started? Is it just mindset? Or where did you go learning everything to get everything done? Looking for your story. Thanks so much. Okay, this is a great question. And when I started my business, and actually before I started my business, I worked for a big firm, Merrill Lynch. And when I worked for Merrill Lynch, you had an assistant that you shared with other advisors. And it was always tough because, of course, they wanted to make as much profit on you as they possibly could. So they try to load up that assistant with as many advisors as possible. So really you're your own show you had like 1/5 of an assistant by the time they were actually able to work on your stuff and not some other advisor's stuff. So you always felt like you're being shortchanged. You never really had the support that you needed. And I think this is a perfect time to do this because when I started in the business, it was actually when the tech bubble burst and we were in a recession, and we're just coming out of recession now, you could get maybe even an internship for free. Now, I would recommend paying. I don't really like the idea of a free internship, but there's so many college kids right now that are so concerned when they get out of college and they're not going to have work. They're just like willing to do anything right now. And I've gotten a lot of emails and calls from students that are just like, hey, I talked to you in the past. If you have any work for me, you'll let me know. So there's a lot of hungry, ambitious young people right now that want experience. And even if you could afford, I don't know what the minimum wage is, but I'm going to say $10 an hour because I don't know where the numbers are today. I think they were even lower back when I was hiring interns when I worked at a big firm like Merrill Lynch. But I think, what you want to do is get some of this cheap labor. And I think if you pay them, I found we did paid internships and non-paid internships. And anytime we had a non-paid internship, the intern disappeared. They just wouldn't show up, and when they did, it was very casual. But if you pay someone, and it's just symbolic, so I don't think it has to be a lot. It's just a more professional setting, and there's more expected of that intern. And we got to a point where we don't do this anymore just because I actually have a budget now, and I can actually afford full-time people. But we would have like 5 or 6 interns just running our proposal desk like a factory, like a machine. They had... you had all the different desks set up, and these statements would come in, and the one intern would do this, and then it would go down the conveyor belt, and they would produce all of our proposals, which is amazing because it gave us so much scale that we kind of were able to commoditize our processes. And I talked a little bit about this before when you're scaling up, is you want to build processes for not today, but what your business could look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Just building a platform that's just completely scalable at a much bigger level. And using interns, in my opinion, is a great way to do that. And right now, there's just so many college kids out there that would love an opportunity to get some professional work. And again, symbolically, even if it's not a lot, if you can't afford a lot, but if you can pay them something, you could get a lot of loyalty there. In fact, I would say at least half our advisors come through our internship program. Unless at least half our employees as well. Because the other thing is, as you grow and you have a really good intern who knows your systems, you like them, they're doing a great job, they want a job after college, well, they're already vetted for you. And that's an amazing thing too. So as your business scales up, some of these people that you hire as interns could actually become full-time employees down the line, and you already know what you're getting because they've been working for you for a couple of years. So another thing is you may want to look at someone who's maybe a junior as opposed to a senior. That gives you a little more runway where you're scaling up your business, where if they're really good, they could work for you for 2 years as an intern before they come on full time. So I'm a big believer in interns, and I think having young people too, just in your business in general, is a really smart idea because young people tend to know a lot of things that we don't know. We become kind of Luddites with technology and what's hip and what other technologies and opportunities are available to us. And the more I'm talking about this right now, I think about my own business, is we have a young team, but our young team now are people in their late 20s and early 30s that when we started with a lot of these people, they were in their early 20s. So I think we need to get that young blood in our office too, as interns. Again, this is a good reminder to me, just to get that fresh perspective that we don't have. And I always love that with interns. And we always, like the summertime, we'd have like 5 or 6 in the office. It brings the energy up, and just you get a lot of cool perspectives on things too. So I think there's a lot of upside there. And I think it's definitely something you should consider as you're building out your team and your opportunities. And again, right now, given the fact that unemployment is, somewhere around 8%, it was a lot harder for him this conversation in January when unemployment was like 4%. But, when you have times of strife like this, you've got a lot of young, hungry people that want the experience. So I think that's just like an awesome opportunity right now. That's all I have for questions today. I'm looking into the comments section just to see if there's anything else that anybody has. But unless you have any other questions, who's ever on this, again, you can ping me in the chat or whatever, even after this is done. I'm happy to answer your questions. And, I had some really good questions this month, and keep them coming. I do this every 4 weeks. And again, anything you want to talk about, business building, investing, any of that stuff, I love to talk about it. And, I'm always happy to chime in, or any questions you have, if you ping me, I'm happy to answer them offline as well. So hope everyone's having a great end of the year. I guess we'll do this again at the end of November. We'll be down the home stretch at that point. We'll have the election behind us, so that'll be interesting. And hope everyone's having a lot of success here moving into the end of the year. I appreciate all of you and look forward to doing this again soon. I'm out. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.